Good morning, pranams to you all. Thank you very much for joining us for the second event that we're hosting in the Boston area to honor the 100-year anniversary of Paramahansa Yoganandaji arriving to Boston. This is taking place in North Andover at the Rolling Ridge Retreat Center. Behind me, you can see the reservoir. This is their outdoor chapel. You can see the cross behind me. And we were able to have this space made available even on this day as we were supposed to be here for the pilgrimage, to take you all here with us, at least virtually. In a moment's time, we'll have a little lighting of the lamp, some singing, and then we're going to pick up the camera as if you were the first person to go through Gurudev's room to bow to his bed. And we're going to take you to a space where we have a bench and a plaque that we're going to unveil for you as part of the celebration. So please enjoy. Thank you very much. Further ado, lighting of the lamp. That's 60. Sorry. दीपं ज्योति परं ब्रह्मा दीपं ज्योति जनार्दनः दीपं ज्योति हरेत् पापं संध्यादीपं नमोस्तुते शुभं करोतु कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रु बुद्धिविनाशाय दीपं ज्योति नमोस्तुते ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्षो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. And now we'll take you through to the where the bench and plaque is. We'll release. Guys ready? Wait. Okay, go ahead. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. 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 Jai Guru, Jai Guru,
Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai. Guru Jai, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Hare Guru Jai.
Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. And now we humbly request Yogacharya Suresh Baba to give us a talk on self-realization. Thank you all.
Let us please close the eyes. I will begin with the Shanti mantra, the peace invocation. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashe Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Tuštuvang Sastanubhe Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuh Swasti na Indro Vriddashravaha Swasti nः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. May we hear only what is good and auspicious with our ears. May we see only good things with our eyes. May we be prayerful in life with calmness of body and mind, and thus may we serve God throughout our life. May we be blessed by Indra, Pusha, Garuda, and Brihaspati. Om peace, Om peace, Om peace. Because so many people are suffering, because of pandemic, because of raging fires in the West, troubles throughout the world, let us chant Trayambakam mantra, Mahamrityunjaya mantra 3 times. Let us all chant together. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityormukshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam ऊर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् ऊर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। I want to bow to Parama Gurudev, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji. Bow to my Gurudev, Paramahansa Hariharananda Ji, my Guruji, Paramahansa Prajnananda Ji. Bow to the entire lineage of Kriya Yoga masters. Bow to saints and sages of all times, of all places. I bow to the Almighty God, and I bow to all of you. Good morning. First order of business, wherever you are, let us clap and applaud the effort that Boston Center is doing. In spite of all this pandemic, they have done a beautiful job in the morning and they continue to do this celebration. Congratulations to all. The celebration is about our Parama Gurudev Yogananda Ji's coming to Boston 100 years ago today. 19th of September 1920, Yogananda Ji, as we all know, arrived in Boston to participate and represent India in the 7th Unitarian Congress of Religious Liberals. Yogananda Ji delivered his address on October 6, 1920 on the science of religion in the Congress of Religious Liberals. And thus began his momentous history-making stay of 32 years in the United States of America. It all began in this city of Boston 100 years ago today. You all know that the organization formed by Yogananda Ji is called Self-Realization Fellowship. The main purpose of the organization, as the name says, is self-realization. There are 3 books based on Yogananda Ji's talks related to self-realization. These books are Journey to Self-Realization, Man's Eternal Quest, and The Divine Romance. Our Gurudev Paramahansa Hariharananda Ji always used to say that the only goal of the human life is to get self-realization. We are only born for self-realization, God-realization. We should live for self-realization and should attain self-realization. Baba used to say that it is in your hand, and it is just now. Baba said that Kriya Yoga is the shortcut path and the quickest path to realization. It is possible to reach God realization in this very life. Yogananda Ji showed mathematically how one can attain self-realization in this very life by practicing Kriya Yoga. It is in chapter 26 called The Science of Kriya Yoga in his spiritual classic, The Autobiography of a Yogi. Lucy Ma went through that when she gave a talk on the book club. Baba Hariharananda Ji used to talk about the story of 2 birds mentioned in Mundaka Upanishad. This is a beautiful story of our normal life, how we can change it by spiritual practice and finally attain realization. That is the power of Upanishad. There is a short video of Hariharananda Ji's talk on the story of 2 birds on Kriya Yoga YouTube channel. Worth watching. Mundaka Upanishad is a very special and one of the oldest Upanishads and is revered by many. Let us see, what is Upanishad? Upanishads are the concluding part of Vedas or Vedanta. Vedas are the sacred scriptures of Hinduism. While Vedas contain mantras, various ritualistic worships, detailed instructions on how to perform those worships and their meanings, Upanishads contain sublime philosophical wisdom leading one to God realization. Vedas and Upanishads are called Shrutis, meaning they were direct revelations of the seers, the rishis in deep meditation. Neither Upanishads or Vedas were authored by human beings. That is why Vedas and Upanishads are described as apaurushaya, not created by human beings. Many Indian and Western philosophers admire the wisdom contained in these Upanishads. The German philosopher Schopenhauer has said, and I quote now, "In the whole world, there is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of Upanishads. It has been the solace of my life. It will be the solace of my death." Unquote. Let us understand the meaning of the word Upanishad. It has three parts: Upa plus Ni plus Shad. Upa means nearby, close to. Ni means in totality without leaving any remnants. And Shad means withering away gradually and at the end destroying completely. Therefore, the meaning of the word Upanishad is when one comes close to understanding the meaning of the sublime wisdom in Upanishad, one's ignorance about one's own nature gets totally annihilated, leaving no remnants of ignorance. With the result, one's real nature is revealed. Mundaka, there is a meaning to the word Mundaka. Mundaka is an instrument used for shaving, a sharp razor. Just like the way a sharp razor can very easily and efficiently remove all the hair from one's head, Mundaka Upanishad has the ability to remove the hair, the dust, the covering, and let the wisdom underneath shine forth. Let us be a little bit more specific. What is the wisdom underneath? What is meant by revealing one's real nature? It means understanding that I'm not just the body and the mind. My true nature is divinity, Sat Chit Ananda, which is existence, consciousness, bliss absolute. Upanishads convincingly answer the age-old question. The question is, who am I? What is my true nature? It helps us intellectually understand the meaning of thou art that and practically guide us on the path to realize this truth. And that is why the study of Upanishad is very important in any spiritual pursuit. Mundaka Upanishad has 3 chapters, 2 sections in each chapter, and total of 64 verses. These short 64 verses have the ability to show the seeker everything that we just talked about. Very first verse establishes the authenticity of Mundaka Upanishad. As Mundaka Upanishad was directly imparted by Brahma, the creator of the cosmos, to his son Atharva. In succession from Atharva, it got passed on ultimately to sage Angiras. This knowledge, since it has come directly from God, its authenticity is not questionable. Since it was originally given by Brahma, the creator of the universe, it is impossible to determine the date of this Upanishad. We can say that this knowledge was imparted by God himself prior to the birth of the cosmos. It is a shame that some philosophers have tried dating it to 600 BC and so on. Now let us talk about Mundaka Upanishad, a brief content of the Mundaka Upanishad. There was an eminent, accomplished, successful householder called Mahashala Shaunaka, who asked a question to sage Angiras. Let's listen. Very important question. He says, is there one thing in this world knowing which everything else will be known? Is there one thing in this world knowing which everything else will be known? Sage Angirasa gave a comprehensive response, saying that there are two types of knowledge, higher knowledge and lower knowledge. Higher knowledge is Paravidya and the lower knowledge is Aparavidya. Paravidya and Aparavidya. Paravidya is the higher knowledge, Aparavidya is the lower knowledge. Let's see what Aparavidya is. Aparavidya means mundane knowledge that we learn from going to schools, colleges, universities, knowledge learned even outside of the educational institutes. This knowledge helps us understand the forces in the external world and methods of making them work to improve our life. Just like in the case of electricity, windmills, solar energy. You see, as the time changes, the basic concept of Aparavidya also changes. When Mundaka Upanishad was revealed to Sage Angirasa, at that time the definition of Aparavidya was given as 4 Vedas and 6 auxiliary parts of the Vedas, 6 parts that help us understand the Vedas. Now 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. And the 6 auxiliary parts are science of pronunciation, code of rituals, grammar, etymology, meter, meaning the science of music and the technique of singing, and finally, astrology. Let me repeat that. First, the science of pronunciation. It is very critical to pronounce Sanskrit verses, mantras properly, accurately. It is really important to pronounce the mantras during the fire ceremony and during these ritualistic worships properly. Second is code of rituals. Grammar is also important, so is etymology. One needs to sing these mantras properly, that is by meter. And finally, astrology. In short, Aparavidya is a journey into the external world, while Paravidya is journey into the internal world. Paravidya is sublime knowledge, the knowledge that will help us understand our real nature. Not only the theoretical knowledge, but a clear pathway to arrive at the answer to the age-old question, as we said earlier, who am I? This is there is a simple but profound definition of Paravidya in Mundaka Upanishad. It says, Yaya tad aksharam adhigamyate. Yaya tad aksharam adhigamyate, meaning that knowledge which helps one to completely, inseparably merge into the divine, the absolute. How beautiful this is. Yaya tad aksharam adhigamyate, knowledge which helps one to completely, inseparably merge into the divine, the absolute. Aksharam is the absolute, indestructible, and adhigamyate means totally destroying the traces of separateness, total oneness with the divine. Aham Brahmasmi, thou art that. You see, when a river merges into the ocean, what happens? Water in the river becomes one with the water of the ocean. You cannot separate it. That oneness of the water is in totality adhigamyate. Mundaka Upanishad gives a definition of Brahma. What is the nature of Brahman? It is beyond the perception of the 5 sense organs. It is beyond the purview of 5 organs of actions. It has no root, meaning that it has no beginning. Words cannot describe it. doesn't have sense organs or the organs of action. It has no body. It is eternal. It is omnipresent and it permeates everything. It is the subtlest of the subtle. It is imperishable. It is the source of everything that is in the cosmos. So everything in the cosmos comes out of it and merges back into it. It's worth repeating it. What is the nature of Brahman? It is beyond the perception of five sense organs, five sense organs of action. It is beginningless, cannot be described by words. It has no body. It is eternal. It is omnipresent. It permeates everything. It is the subtlest of the subtle. It is imperishable. It is the source of everything that is in the cosmos. According to the theory of causation, most of us know the theory of causation. There are three things that are required for producing anything, for anything to come into existence. Normally, an example of a potter, the mud and the potting wheel is given. To what? To make earthen pots. Potter is called the efficient cause. Mud is called the material cause, and wheel, the auxiliary cause. So these three causes, potter, the efficient cause, mud, the material cause, and wheel, the auxiliary cause. Whereas in Paravidya, the cause of everything that exists in the world is Brahman and Brahman alone. This is a philosophical description of Atman or the Brahma. He was alone, he desired or willed to be many, and he became many. The entire creation comes out of Brahman and finally merges back into Brahman. This is contrary to the theory of causation in the material world. Rishi Angirasa gives three worldly examples to make this point, to convince us about the existence of Brahman, how things can come out of one thing, how the entire creation can come out of one thing. These examples are: one is the spider. What does the spider do? Spider spins the web. He produces every string of the web from his mouth, watches it. If the string is not perfect, he again absorbs it back within him through his mouth. This production is done without the help of any raw material, without any instrument, without any methodology. Example in the mundane world. Second example is the remotest part of the jungle, which is untouched by human beings. A plant comes out of the ground and at the end of its life goes back into the ground. And the third example that we all experience, hair grows on person's head, and even after cutting it many times, it continues to grow. These are the three totally different examples defying the theory of causation and supporting the definition of Brahman to help us understand it. In the second part of the first chapter of Mundaka, Rishi Angirasa explains the Aparavidya meaning. It is the knowledge about the external elements in the world. Vedas systematically describe various worships and the fire ceremonies for attaining something in this world or beyond. Any action performed with an intention of gaining something creates karma. Good action creates good karma. Bad action or even inaccurate action, I'll explain that in a minute. Inaccurate action creates bad karma. Vedas are called karma kanda. They describe the procedures, instruments, and required mantras in details for attaining specific results. If these services and the fire ceremonies are not performed according to the Veda, then bad karma is created, and the performer may get punished on account of inaccurately performing the service. Depending upon the amount of good karma accumulated, one spends respective amount of time in heaven. So apara vidya is also able to take one to heaven. The only thing is, when that good karma is exhausted, one has to return back to earth, take birth, live life, die. So this way, the cycle of birth and death still continues in apara vidya. After concluding the topic of apara vidya, Rishi Angila starts to go a little deeper into para vidya. Second chapter, first and second part are devoted to intellectual understanding of the sublime philosophy of para vidya. Both parts of the third chapter are devoted to practical application of the theory, which is described in the second chapter, and concluding with the description of effects that are created attaining this sublime knowledge, Brahma Vidya. One who attains this knowledge, according to Mundaka Upanishad, Brahma Vidya, according to Vedic philosophy, according to yogic philosophy, realization. One continues with life after attaining realization, after attaining Brahma Vidya, but that life is filled with love, compassion, detachment. He or she does not walk around with a bright shining light around the head. Gurudev Hariharananda Ji was a shining example of a living, realized master. The first stanza in the first part of the second chapter gives the example of a raging fire. Hard for me to talk about raging fire considering number of people who are suffering from this raging fire. So I ask for your forgiveness, but want to be true to the scripture. Let us call the raging fire a bonfire. When we see the bonfire, what do we see? We see the flames, the fire, and out of that come the sparks, thousands and thousands of sparks. Now the fire and the sparks, they have the same attribute of heat. Just like the way living beings born out of imperishable Brahman, and at the end of their lives going into the Brahman, have the same attributes of Brahman. In the third chapter, first two verses vividly describe the journey of the individual soul from the normal material life until it reaches realization in a beautiful poetic way. These verses were favorite verses of Gurudev Hariharananda Ji. Dva suparna sayuja sakhaya samanam vriksham parishasvajate tayoranyah pippalam swadavatti anashnanyo abhichakashiti samane vrukshe purusho nimagno nashaya shochati muyyamanah jushtam yada pashyati anyamisham asya mahimanam iti vita shokah. Let's take the first stanza. Talks about Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya. Two birds of the same kind. Samanam Vruksham, of the same tree. Parishasvajati, they are living on this same tree. Tayor Anya Pippalam Swadavati. One is eating fruits. Anya Abhichakashiti. Abhichakashiti, just regally looking, divinely looking, without eating fruits, without looking anywhere. He's just sitting at the top of the tree. What is the bird on the lower part of the tree is doing? He's looking here, looking there. The tree has a lot of fruits. So the bird goes, eats one fruit. It's a sweet fruit. He goes to the other fruit, eats the other fruit, is sweet, wants to eat more, goes to the third fruit. All of a sudden, that fruit is bitter. When it is a bitter fruit, he pulls back. He looks up, looks at that bird sitting up there, regally sitting up there, not moving, not eating. So the bird on the lower branch is thinking, how beautiful that is, how regal that is. But that thought does not stay for too long because still attracted by many fruits surrounding him. Starts to eat the fruits, hops on the upper branch. Fruit is sweet, he is happy. Another fruit is sweet, he is very happy. Third fruit he's eating, bitter fruit. Keeps on his journey like that. Whenever there is a bitter fruit, he pulls back, he looks up. Finally, he eats one fruit that is very bitter. Takes the shock of his life. Just like in our life, sometimes we hear about the death of the loved one, or we come to know about our mortality. Some incurable disease comes up to us, happens to us, we get that, and then looks like the end of life is there. What do people do at that time? They turn to God. They look up towards the heaven. Just like the way this bird looked. Then he went up, then he started to hop up and up and up. The attraction of that bird, the beauty of that bird was so overwhelming. As he starts to come closer to the bird, something different, something magical happens. It's getting very close to the bird, and all of a sudden his plumage starts to wither away. He merges into that bird. Then he sees that there is only one bird. There is no second bird. There is no higher bird. There is no lower bird. Let us spend a couple of minutes trying to understand this. What is the significance of the tree, the upper bird, the lower bird? The tree represents our physical body. Tree grows, tree is born, tree grows, tree stops growing, tree starts to decay, tree dies. Body has got 6 levels of existence. Body is born, body exists, body keeps on growing, then it comes to a plateau. It stops growing. Then starts the decaying process. Starts to decay, maybe because of the age, because of the disease, and ultimately dies. So, that tree represents the physical body that we can see, everybody else can see. But that is not the only thing. We have a subtle body called Sukshma Sharira. There are 19 components of this Sukshma Sharira. 5 organs of action, 5 organs of perception first. Eyes, ears. Look, eyes, ears are the physical organs and they're covered by the Sthula Sharira or the physical body. So what is meant in the subtle body is the energy that makes these organs function, these organs of perception function. So eyes, ears, nose, tongue to taste, and skin to touch. 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action. Again, the energy that makes these organs function. Hands, feet, mouth to speak. Organ of reproduction, an organ of defecation. So these 5 organs of actions, we have 10 components. Then there are 5 pranas, pancha pranas. For all these organs and the body, for all the internal organs to function, we need the energy, and that energy is given by pancha prana. These 5 pranas, they are responsible for our breathing, responsible for the digestion, converting that digested food into our body, responsible for flow of the blood throughout this body, responsible for keeping this engine functioning. So these are 15 pancha prana. Then there are 4 antahkarana: mana, mind; buddhi, intellect; ahankara, ego; and memory. Mano, buddhi, hankara, chitta. That is memory. So these 3. So these 15 plus 4, 19 elements comprise of Sukshma Sharira. Now Sukshma Sharira, nobody else can see my Sukshma Sharira. I can only experience it. I close my eyes, I can feel my mind functioning. I can perceive all the internal organs functioning. So that is Sukshma Sharira. But that is not it. We have one that is even subtler than that, which is called Karana Sharira, causal body. What is causal body? We experience that or we don't experience that. Really, we don't experience it. In deep sleep, in a dreamless sleep, what we experience is the subtle body. We do not experience it while we are in deep sleep, called Sushupti. But when we wake up, what do we say? I don't know what happened. I don't remember what happened in the sleep, but I know I feel refreshed. I feel rejuvenated. Because this body covers our consciousness, our real nature. That is why it is called ignorance body. It has the veiling effect of covering our nature. Now, beyond these 3 bodies, there are 2 more elements. One is called awareness. It's called reflected consciousness, because the original consciousness is far superior to this awareness. Awareness is, I can see, I can hear, I am aware of all my surroundings. That awareness is there in all these organs. That awareness, I have that. So that is an important element without which we cannot function. See, it is called reflected consciousness because, see, if you look in the mirror, if I look in the mirror, I see my face. I cannot see my face. Others can see my face, but my face I can see only as the reflection. But that reflected face implies the original face, the real face. Just like the way when we say a moonlight. Moonlight implies the existence of the sun because it is reflected from the moon. So that way, this is the reflected consciousness and the original consciousness. Original consciousness is that bird sitting at the top of the tree. That does not move, that does not eat. That is called Sakshi Chaitanya. That is the observer. Now, if that bird in the the top of the tree is Sakshi Chaitanya, is the original consciousness, then the remaining 3 elements, which is Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, and reflected consciousness, make up this Sukshma Sharira. So this is how we have the story of the 2 birds gets related to our existence. What happens to the body? What happens? Body is the karta. Body is doing all the actions and accumulating karma. Creating karma, accumulating karma. What is that karma? There is good action creates good karma, bad action creates bad karma. Eating bad fruits, eating good fruits. unless and until we really get the shock of our life, we do not really look up and say, ask ourselves, who am I? Because we are looking at that beautiful bird, regal bird, and then we start our journey. That journey is the spiritual journey. That brings us to the second verse. Samane vrukshe purusho nimagno anashaya shochati mulyamana. What happens when we go through all these experiences in life, when we are creating all these karmas? Most of the karma that we remember are bad karmas. Good karmas go. We don't remember them. What does that do? It makes us shochati, it makes us sorrowful, it makes us unhappy. And that makes us mulyamana, deluded. This body I have, I'm doing all these things. I don't say I have the body. In our life, we say I am the body, I am the doer, I am the mind. Which is what brings all this confusion, mulyamana, and brings sorrow. Jushtam yada pashyati anyam. Isham. Jushtam means adorable. Yada pashyati anyam isham. Isham is God. One that is sitting up there, the consciousness. Once the lower bird sees that, what happens? Once he looks at that adorable bird, Mahimanam iti vita shoka, sorrow goes away. Total happiness, total contentment, total oneness. That's how the beautiful these two verses are. And that is the beginning of the third chapter. These two verses are 3.1.1 and 3.1.2. Then Mundaka Upanishad goes into the two chapters, two subparts of the third chapter, and explains what happens once Brahma Vidya is revealed, once realization is reached. What are the effects? What happens? So that's how beautiful this scripture, Mundaka Upanishad, is dedicated to realization. Let us stop here. Conclude with the mantra. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. See if you can relate this mantra to the two birds. That is divine, and its manifestation, which is this body, is divine. Purnat Purnamadachyate. This has come from that divinity. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Once this comes out of that body, then the only thing that remains is the higher bird. Total divinity, totality of existence. Thank you all very much for spending the time with me. Thank you very much for the Boston Kriya Yoga Center for giving this opportunity. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. At this time, we'll have some children doing the chanting for us from the local group. Now.
Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Guru Devaya Vidmahe Parabrahmani Dhimahe Tanno Guru Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. भूर्भुवस्सः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ गुरुदेवाय विद्महे परब्रह्मणे धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् जय गुरु
शांति शांति शांति
Thank you very much for joining us in the second part of the Boston pilgrimage for honoring 100th year of Paramahansa Yoganandaji coming to Boston. I wish to thank you very much for coming. Pranams to you all. Thank you. So there is a booklet like you can